I've gone through a lot of trial and error with this show over the last 3 years because I kind of morphed the radio show into a podcast. And when doing that, there was a huge learning curve of what worked and what did not work. Oddly enough, some of the format of this show, actually, a lot of the ideas that have helped make it work, like, for example, last month, a lot of things that I've changed have been very effective as far as views, things like that. For example, I looked at my YouTube stats today, and I don't really like Facebook. I get a ton of traffic on YouTube. I really didn't. And then suddenly I now have 3 times the amount of average hours watched in the last month than the last couple months than I did before that. One of the things that I took a lot of my format away from, as much as this might sound crazy because we're talking about music, a lot of the ideas I took and sort of morphed it onto my show come from sports talk people. A lot of podcasts about sports, people that, interview athletes, things like that. Some of the way the show is set up was the idea that I had for that was to take it from a completely different realm of where I'm at now. So, you might watch my podcast. What does my podcast have? It's about an hour long. Typically, there's 4 topics I visit. I cut those topics up into 4 separate videos in case people just want to see that. And same thing with the interviews. I do the same thing. And I have a whole program that will caption reels. Like I have a whole bunch of reels that I'm about to put up. So, but a chunk of that comes from the sports talk world and the way that a lot of sports talk people and athletes or former athletes do their podcasts. I took a few of their ideas work. Some of them don't because, obviously it's a completely different realm. But I've actually found that, you're right. Like I said, you're talking about standing out. You're talking about making the PR stand out and doing different things. Again, this goes into what I'm saying. There aren't very many people whose emails and what they do, there aren't many people that, with what they do, they don't really stand out from each other, most of them. And it's the exact same thing you just said. People stuck in the 80s, people stuck in what worked for radio 25 years ago. Radio it's a completely different thing now. Streaming is a completely different thing. So I'll give you an interesting analogy. So my radio show, I was just talking to somebody about this today. The way it worked was you had 3 hours. I would talk, I would actually have a music portion of the show to start the show off. The middle hour was the interview hour. The last hour was music. Very simple, easy to follow format. And we started streaming over the internet back in like 06 or 07. That was like that's when really we started streaming it, and then, of course it became, as streaming has happened and when Spotify started and when a lot of these streaming services started, the one thing that was interesting is I noticed with the user stats, the music portion of the show, the user stats were just basically going into the toilet. The interview portion was still doing really well. And then the constant feedback that I would get is, you should just do an all talk show because we can just go to Spotify and get whatever we want at this point. And so when I kind of turned this into a podcast, because I'm thinking, how would I do a talk show on radio? I mean, it'd have to be boring. But then I realized, you know what? Let's do it on video. Let's do interviews the way I would do them. But of course, I'm, sort of virtually face to face with people, and then talk about things, talk about topics. Because now the way things have shifted is they've shifted towards streaming platforms and people getting their music that way. And so people have heard this stuff. And the way that it used to work is that when you'd play something, let's say I played a Wasp track just because, you do PR for them. Let's say I play a song off The Last Command, and then I might say, hey, you know what? I like this album. I give a couple sentences as to why. And then, I play a track off of it. Or then I recap what I played. Well, now that's not a thing a lot of people are into anymore. But what are they into? They are into talking about specific, things going on with bands, things that have happened. Or maybe they're into, what are your thoughts on, the Black Sabbath farewell show? Or, things like that. And then I realized when I started talking about those things, that resonated a lot more with people. And then when I kind of morphed this into the podcast 3 years ago, which is really kind of where it started, then that was a whole learning curve. But, again, I don't do anything the same way I did back then, so
Yeah,
you're right.
everything's got to change. I mean, and I want to add something. You've mentioned it a couple times of like, when you get these, you get thousands of emails a week from publicists, and what compels you to open it and do something. Well, here's what every artist out there has to remember. It's all about your story.
Mm-hmm.
The word story. And what do I mean by that? Well, what is going to compel Tony to open your email versus the one that's right below it?
Mm-hmm.
What is the story that's going to compel him to open it? Obviously, if it's an artist he knows and already loves, that plays into it. But there's nothing you can do about that. And here's where this concept of the story really confuses artists when I tell them, your new music isn't the story at all, unless it's a major artist that people have been anticipating and waiting for music.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you recorded an album and are releasing it, that's not the story, especially if you are a new band.
Yeah.
That's never been heard of. So what is the story? What obstacles did you have to overcome? What challenges did you face to release and record this music? That's the story that will compel somebody like Tony to say, this interests me. I've never heard of this artist, but because of what they went through to make this happen, I've got more interest in it. So, and it's a challenge because there's sort of a hierarchy here. You've got an inbox filled with email messages, and there's a subject line. That subject line has to be the first thing that compels somebody to go, why am I even going to open this email?
That is 100% spot on.
That subject line has to get them to open it. Because if they don't open it, it doesn't matter how great that PR is, how great your music is. If it's never opened, it doesn't matter. So, subject line, first thing. Now it opens up. Now you've got your moment to give your quick punch to the face of what's the story here and get right to it. It's like, we overcame death to record this album. Yeah. Okay. That got my interest. Read on, get a little more of it. Now you're going to go, wow, this is a story here. I want to share this press release, and I'm now interested in hearing what this music sounds like based on what they had to overcome. Yeah. And then if you like the music, I want to interview this person and dig into this story more. And, some artists are like, yeah, but I want them to talk about the album. I'm like, they're talking to you. Don't worry. At the end of that interview, at the end of the article that they write, whatever, there's always going to be something that says, and they've got a new album that just released, or it's coming out. Here's the pre-order link, or here's the new video. That'll all, a respectable and experienced journalist is going to make sure that is always included in there. But the meat, 80% of that story interview might be about your story, not who the lead guitarist is and playing that song and whatever it is. So this is what artists need to think about. Okay, you've recorded this album and you're ready to release it. What is your damn story? Why is this more important than the next band?
Something that I'm an artist manager. I obviously the label Bravewords Records, and I'm a musician, so I have a unique perspective.
You wear all the hats. You see it from all sides.
Of sitting at many sides of the table. The musician cares about the music. And to pull them away from that, I've sat down with many great people and who have been kind enough and generous enough to give me their time. People that have done, defining things in this business. One man said something to me once. He goes, bands will always say, we've got a great record. We're great live. He goes, you know what I say to him? I said, well, what's that? He goes, there's 1,000 bands out there that have got a great record and they're great live. Now what?
Yeah.
Yep.
Why you over those other ones?
What are you over those other ones? But because they always say, well, we're awesome live, and man, we've got a really great record. That's great. You've got to be excited about your music, because if you're not, no one else is going to be. But there's 999 other bands that are great live and have a great record out. Now what?
Yeah.
So you gotta
find that what. You got to find that what.
What I always tell artists is, you're telling me you've got such a great song or a great album here, but if nobody hears it, is it really great? If the only people that ever hear that song are you, your band members, and your mom and dad, is it a great song? A great song is because it gets out there and connects to the masses in some way. So, and that's where the story, the marketing, all of this comes in, is we're trying to get that music out beyond your little circle so everybody else can go, wow, that is a great song. That is great.
It's like a root canal. And I'm not going to sit here and, again, we're in a note, let's not name names because it seems to be the theme of the day, but there are artists I've managed, there are artists that I've worked with on this label and previous labels. There's artists that I've offered advice to. And it does tend to be artists of a certain generation that have this attitude of push all the promo back on the label. Well, that's their job to sell the record. That's their job, and they push it all back. You say, hey, set up a phone. Video yourself talking about every song on the record. Just give us a background story of every song on the record. You want to talk about the music? Okay, let's talk about the music. Give us a story of every song on the record and send each video back to us. We can make, social media reels from that. We can post them. That gives us content to work the next few weeks with.
Yeah.
You'll get two. You'll get two if you're lucky, and they'll stop. And then you're having to go, hey, any luck with those videos? Well, I've been kind of busy. I'll get to it. Okay, it's your album. You want to promote it. You want to talk about the music, and add your gigs to your Bands in Town account, or give us a login, set us up, and we'll do it. Yeah, well, I'll get around to that soon.
Yeah, when you talk about content, it's a lot like Mark Zonder doing the playthroughs on the A through Z album. You ever see those videos where he just does that? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, again, think about the fans. You've got fans who want to know the story of this particular song. What does that lyric mean? Or you've got other fans who are like, how did you get the guitar tone on that incredible song there? I want to know. All right.
Do a playthrough, do a rig rundown, go through each song, pull out a phone on the road and film something funny and send it to us. Yeah. So many artists are so resistant to that stuff. Well, we don't want to show too much behind the scenes. No, show it all. Talk about every song. It doesn't have to be.
I kid you not. I still hear occasionally from artists, well, the music's good enough to do the talking for me.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
we have long past that ever being the case anymore.
Oh, yeah.
The music isn't doing the talking for you.
No.
Because, I mean, where are we at now? Like in streaming services, like every day, 100,000 new tracks are uploaded every day to streaming services. Good music isn't going to just bubble up. It's not like the 70s where you had a small number of labels, they were gatekeepers and they managed it, and then you had radio stations that managed what you were hearing. I mean, in that case, it might work. But again, we also know from the business side of things that wasn't the case. There was payola and there was all sorts of
I was about to
stuff
mention payola.
that was manipulating what you were being heard, or, hey, you said something to piss off the record label president, so your new album is now going to get buried in the marketing. We're not going to buy
my favorite story, and I won't name the band, and it's a legendary band, cult level legendary band. The label sent the main guy from the band out to talk to radio stations about the new record, thinking it would promote the record. The record was selling pretty good, so let's send the main guy out there to go around the radio stations and do the PR circuit. He got into a fight with nearly every single radio. He was a controversial kind of character. He got into a fight with every single radio guy, and his PR tour was actually doing more harm to the record than if he wasn't doing it. So they said, well, we're doing better. We were doing better when you weren't out promoting your record. So they took the guy, pulled him off the circuit and put him back,
Hey everybody, Tony here from the Metal Command podcast. Again, I appreciate your support. Since 1998, I have hosted this show in one form or another, starting off in radio and now in the podcast format. Again, thanks for watching, and if you like what you see and hear on this show, by all means, please hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell to be notified anytime I do post a video, and if you see this program on any other form of social media, please give me a follow there. Again, I always appreciate your support.